Welcome to Regulatory Ramblings. It's a special edition with HK FinTech Week right around the corner. It's one of the premier events of its kind and puts Hong Kong on the map. Also part of the festivities is HKU FinTech Day on November 1st. With HK FinTech Week proper running from October 30th to November 5th, with the main events on November 2nd and 3rd at the Convention Exhibition Center in Wan Chai. Our guests today are Karena Belin and Karen Contet. They are founders of WHub and AngelHub. And WHub, starting this year, is the organizer of HK FinTech Week, taking over from Finoverse. And, Karena and Karen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, great to be back at HKU.
Much obliged. So, I've seen some of the lineup for this year, well-stacked panels. What, broadly speaking, what can we expect from HK FinTech Week?
Well, I think we can expect an incredible lineup, as you mentioned, and really a gather of the entire fintech landscape, right? From incumbents, from tech companies, from regulators, government bodies, and really meaningful discussion about, the latest technology, AI, and Web3 and how it has been impacting and moving forward the fintech space.
Yeah, I know. Looking at the lineup and the big names you've gotten, it seems people are spoiled for choice. They're really going to have to be selective because obviously some sessions, some panels are going to clash.
There's always a lot going on, for sure. And I think particularly this year we're really proud. The theme is FinTech Redefined. Yeah. And we like people to read as we're showcasing the tech in FinTech, and we're showcasing Hong Kong really as a thriving tech hub, and particularly in financial services. So as Karen said, there's an incredible lineup, as much as on maybe more traditional financial services players, as well as on tech players in the Web3 and the AI space. So yeah, at one point in time, you may decide rather to be on the dedicated tech stage or rather listen to center stage or to the dedicated Hong Kong and GBA stage or the venture stage and showcase stage. So a lot is going on.
That's true. Something that a lot of people are talking about right now, it's in the zeitgeist is what you'd call it, is AI and LLM. I see you've paid attention to that as well as the regulatory panels. They seem... Not just one. There are multiple panels dealing with the implications of regulation, which is always of interest to us, being HKU Law School. Related to that is also the GBA week, and what are your thoughts on the startup scene in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area?
Yeah, maybe actually before we go into GBA, I don't know if Karen wants to highlight actually on AI and Web3, because we were just running a global scale-up competition, and companies were particularly coming right from the AI. And
that was downtown.
It's true. Not only in, well,
I mean,
where did we go?
The thing is that even before Hong Kong FinTech Week, we've been on the road, for the past 2 months and a half, and we've been in 12 economies, cities, and 3 continents. So we've actually been to Toronto, London, Berlin, Tel Aviv, Dubai, Bangalore, Bangkok, Shenzhen, Singapore, Hong Kong last week, actually at HKU. So thank you very much for hosting us. And we have been organizing our global scale-up competitions. So in each cities, we had a semi-finals where actually we had a lot of applicants. In total, we got more than 500 applicants. And in each city, we select, one winner to come and to pitch at Hong Kong FinTech Week, to showcase, all the latest trend and scale-ups that have been using AI and Web3 and really enabling fintech. So it's also a big part of the conference. And we saw for 80% of the application were related either or to Web3 and AI, or sometimes even both, right? Because it's very complementarity type of technologies as well.
It is a seamless web. And what strikes me is that by taking that approach, much is said about inclusion these days. There are people who no doubt participated in this contest, in the competition, that maybe are from jurisdictions where people don't necessarily have the means and wouldn't be able to make it to Hong Kong on their own. And by virtue of this, you're giving them a chance, a platform to shine and make their talents known.
Yeah, exactly. And the aim really also is that they have interest actually, to come and to set up in Hong Kong and in the region. So it's really providing them the opportunity to showcase their solution, to build meaningful connections during the conference. We'll make sure they have visibility and they have access as well to big players. So it's great for business.
The
networking is big, right? Part of the conference. It's it's about learning and connecting in order really to make your business grow.
I mean, coming back to your question on the GBA, right? So I think it's we're obviously super proud that for Hong Kong FinTech Week we bring the GBA Day back, which is the cross-boundary event on the 31st of October, taking place in Futian. And I think it will be thrilling not only to bring overseas guests into mainland China, but also to attract the Chinese tech ecosystem into that event. I think it will be particular, to your point, thrilling for people who have never been to Shenzhen or Futian to just walk out, step out the bus or step out of the MTR and realize how silent it is, how clean it is. 95%, maybe even 99% all electrical vehicles. It's a very, very impressive, I think, experience. And to your point, on GBA Day in particular, would like to put the focus not only on the narrow sense of financial services, but generally highlighting the tech ecosystem in Shenzhen.
So the other applications for society, I guess an analogy would be that the space race during the 60s and 70s created many spillover technologies that ended up in the consumer space.
Exactly. And anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about business. So the underlying rails are, finance for sure. Right. But just as one of the examples, so there is networking, there are panels and firesides, but there are also company tours. And some of these company tours will go to players, for example, DAS Technology, which I think has, for sure, the greenest building in Shenzhen, I think one of the greenest buildings in China, maybe probably one of the greenest buildings in the world, where everything is really digitally controlled. And I think it's kind of like eye-opening, and people just walking in and see that you can control anything, any employee can control anything from their own iPhone, and having stats live in real time on what's happening, that the building is carbon negative. I think people will start realizing that that's where the future is heading. So it's going to be thrilling.
Others have said that even if the innovation isn't necessarily taking place in Hong Kong, that it can play that retro portal middleman role that it did during the colonial age, during British rule. Obviously things have changed, but so long as it can, because Shenzhen is right next door. So do you necessarily need to be the hub? You can be a facilitator. You can provide other professional services to the people in Shenzhen that are doing the innovation, and I guess collect your fees, get your cut, and perhaps be a place where some of those technologies are implemented.
Yeah, I think that the power of a hub is you connect, you plug at any given stage. And I think what we can see is we talked about, I think the last time as well, is like Hong Kong has scaled in a short amount of time number of unicorns, right? The 20 unicorns for 7 million people, that's a quite high density of unicorns per capita. Yeah, and some of them were really leaders or are still leaders in their industry, right? And we talked about DJI or SenseTime or Animoca brand. So these are not just unicorns, but they're really in the leading ranks of their industry. So I think you have really both. You have technology really coming out of you, or companies actually coming over. Yeah. And as Karen said, a huge interest now from companies coming over and
that's
exploring.
What gets the press attention, the companies that come over, and not so much the homegrown ones. So since setting up AngelHub and AngelHub and WHub, what have you seen in terms of challenges and opportunities, in terms of what you can contribute to the growth you've seen, the kinds of the people you're working with, but also the difficulties, because business comes with challenges. So what can you tell me about your experiences so far?
I think we really started WHub out of a passion, for the tech ecosystem and entrepreneurs, and we started AngelHub in order to be able to bring more capital into the tech ecosystem. So we really always wanted to democratize, I would say, private markets, and this has always been our mission. So we really started with AngelHub, and being regulated is definitely key. We do believe in regulation, and we believe that it provides a great framework and recognizance, actually, when you're starting a business, which is key. And we've been, really proud actually to be able to provide deal by deal tech investment opportunities to high net worth individuals so that they could participate into the growth of the tech ecosystem. So that's something that we are very proud of, and we really hope to contribute more in this space because, as you know, it's very challenging, of course, for a tech company to raise funding, and it should not only come from like VC or private equity, but everyone should be able actually to invest into tech companies and to contribute in these amazing companies.
What are your thoughts on liquidity in Hong Kong? Is it there's enough money sloshing around, but is there enough money willing to take a risk on such technologies?
But the thing is, it's the same everywhere, right? First of all, it's really risky and illiquid type of investment. So, I wouldn't recommend anybody to put more than 5 or 10% of their net worth into this such asset class. So it's a type of investment, but you should definitely diversify it. And some people are definitely, inclined to take this kind of risks.
And some people have done spectacularly.
Yeah, of course, and some people also lose everything, right? I mean, let's not forget that. But definitely, it's a good chance to contribute to an amazing, story and to an amazing development. And we had actually one exit already in AngelHub, providing like 19x return to our investors, which we exit. So it does happen.
Certainly, I think it is the risk takers, and here we have to hand it to those high net worth individuals that do take that risk and are forward thinking that move the society and the technology and the markets.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's about the risk takers, but it's also, we've always been on a mission education is a big part of what we do. And therefore, that's why we are so aligned between what we're doing on WHub and with FinTech Week, the conference, right? It's about the sharing, the knowledge, the learning. And, by empowering this high net worth individual to learn more about the market, by sharing our expertise and what we know, it's also the best way for them to invest in the market, because you have to admit it's complicated when it's not your day-to-day job, right, to assess an opportunity. So we are definitely here, to provide our expertise, to share the due diligence that we do, and to explain to them why we select what companies to be on the platform as well.
That's key, the due diligence, the vetting.
Totally.
Yeah. A variant of a discussion that I seem to have with a lot of people is that there is a camp that says technology and sustainability are at odds with each other. Yes, people talk about green technology, but that if you're going to see greater implementation of technology, you're talking about more devices, more tablets, more mobile phones, more computers, more devices of all sorts. Those require all kinds of resources, all kinds of inputs, precious earth metals, which can leach into the soil, what have you. In summary, the proliferation of technology is not sustainable, because where are all these resources going to come from? There's also the camp that says, okay, there's green energy, you can do it in a sustainable way, but again, even that requires inputs. And with China scaling back what it's willing to export, with the situation with Russia, and many inputs come from there, the claim is that, for example, green energy and other areas of tech aren't going to be possible because you require those inputs from certain parts of the world, and there's a limit to how much Europe and Australia and the US can ramp up. Is tech at odds with sustainability?
Listen, it's never black or white, right? It's like when you start running, you cannot go for a 100 kilometer, overnight. So I think when we're talking about sustainability and technology, it's how we can do both also at the same time, and implementing it to the best way we can, right? So for example, we're looking at a company that is doing recycling plastic, and they're really leveraging technology in order to make it in a faster way, in a more controlled way. So that's a good way to, how technology can really help sustainability. So I think it's not about, pointing out like the good players, the bad players, but it's all making sure that we are making the effort in order to incorporate all the sustainable angles into the technology that we are using. Because let's face it, we're not going to leave our phone and drop it off because it's bad for the planet. So we need to find
because
a
it's
way.
an extension of yourself.
Exactly. So we need to find a way to make it work together. And I think sustainability is actually a big part of the conference. And it's getting into all the different part of the business and even into like really small business that really takes this to heart. So I think we're heading into the right direction. And really, when I see also the young generation, I see the difference between my parents and my kids, right? It's like there is definitely a word in terms of sustainability, and I think we're getting into the right direction.
I think one of the things I would just highlight again, there's a lot to unpack in your question actually, yes. But I think I would take it a twist on saying, no, I would say actually the statement that technology is against sustainability in itself is the wrong angle to take, because technology is always an enabler.
Or is it at odds with sustainability?
No, because technology is always an enabler. So it's our responsibility, how do we leverage the technology? And what, for example, phones are replacing other means. For example, digital payments replace other means of fiat payments, for example, right? Where you would have to install tons of ATMs, etc., which also have a certain carbon footprint, right? I actually once read an article that made the claim that digital currencies are more positive than fiat money. And I can share you the link, and you could go into intricacies, and obviously you could then kind of like re-question the research methodology, and all of these assumptions were right. But I think what this study actually shows is the beauty of, let's think about technology as an enabler, how we humans will apply it and what we will replace with technology, right? Does that have a positive impact to the environment or a negative? That's our decision to make, but it's not the technology per se. And then just thinking about, even if, I think everybody congratulated, right, when Ethereum made the move, actually, from running from, proof of work to proof of, no, actually, the other way. Exactly.
Well, when they change,
I'll take another sip of coffee. Yes, exactly.
When they change in order to be more sustainable.
Exactly.
But I think at the end of the day, what you want to say, that it's definitely our responsibility, and that's why it's great to have regulators to come into the discussion, so that we can actually set up together the right framework that is enabling all of us to use technology in the right way, and to make sure that we're moving into a better planet.
Certainly the tech side has a very powerful argument, and one must always attempt to see both sides, and oftentimes there's more than one side, which is that digitization has saved the planet in innumerable ways, because look at how much less paper we're using compared to earlier generations when everything was documented and had to be filed in cabinets. And I mean, that was just, some would say it was rapacious. I mean, the number of trees that had to be killed to crank out all that paper. And in the legal profession, I mean, it still happens.
Yep. And as Karen said, come to the conference. So actually the ESG angle is a very, very important part of Hong Kong FinTech Week as well, right? So, and it goes beyond just green finance, right? But it's really, what is the role that technology plays in the entire ESG area, right? So,
but it's definitely our responsibility, actually. So that's the thing, is that tech can be used for so many different things, right? It's really how we use it and the effort we make on it on a day-to-day as well.
No, well put. I mean, I think we're past just e-verification and digital signatures. We're in the age of e-paper. So yeah, that's
when you had to actually meet someone in order to get the wet signature. Can you imagine that? I mean, when you think about it. So.
Unless you walked over, or the taxi.
And if they're non-cooperative at that, so both of you have taught the module on crowdfunding for HKU's online FinTech course. How has the fundraising and valuation landscape changed since you originally taught the course, or has it? I mean, are the fundamentals still intact?
Well, I think the course was really about, what is crowdfunding and what is the benefit, for the society. And then we discuss about the different instruments for fundraising. So the fundamental, honestly, is still the same. The different type of products in order to raise funding for your companies is still the same. So definitely go and listen to the course because it's still very valuable. In terms of fundraising amount, valuation, well, we can discuss about this every week. It's going to change every week. So that's definitely a really long discussion. I think at the end of the day, what is really key is that crowdfunding is growing. We see new regulation coming into place in order to facilitate crowdfunding, meaning to facilitate the crowd and everyone to be able to participate in the funding all these new tech companies, but not only tech companies. It could be for any type of companies, actually. We leverage it for tech companies ourselves. But it's growing, and we have always been a believer in the crowdfunding space and in, including everybody in the space and not only have it dedicated to experts, right? So I think the course is a great way to learn more about how you can participate into this kind of ecosystem.
That's a fair point. I mean, that can be off-putting when people feel that it's the domain of only those in the know.
Exactly, which is really
Once upon
wrong.
a time, you had blue ribbon juries. People of a certain education level could only serve on juries. Right now, in these egalitarian times, that'd be a faux pas. It's a non-starter.
And actually, that's why we are really advocate of transparency. I mean, in terms of disclosing, the valuation, about raising awareness about different clauses into contracts, so people can be more aware of it. And by bringing more transparency into a space, it's always beneficial for both parties, actually, investors and entrepreneurs.
Should securities regulations be applied to crowdfunding, or does crowdfunding require its own, perhaps light regulatory tone?
So it depends. When we talk about crowdfunding, you have reward crowdfunding, so you get a reward or you get a product. When we're talking about lending or equity, of course, this needs to be regulated because it's actually a financial instrument. So definitely it should be regulated. And of course, when you're selling
But
financial...
banking rules don't necessarily need... I mean...
When you're dealing with people money like this and for like investment purpose, I think it's great to have a regulation. And I think what I love about regulators now is that they are more open as well to have discussion and to see how it impacts businesses and to work hand in hand together in order to make it the best way possible for the end customer. But definitely regulation is key. And also for the end user, I think it's reassuring, to see that, the company that are providing you this type of services is regulated and is not doing nonsense. I mean, we've seen in the past how this can go wild, right? So I think it's always good to have regulations for equity, crowdfunding.
Yeah. Because it drives the clarity, right? Because
Exactly.
again, at the end of the day, if you don't regulate, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just means there's no clarity.
Certainly regulators have moved beyond just once upon a time perhaps ignoring it, treating it as a fringe. Now they realize they have to regulate it, and that makes sense because you can't be a stealth de facto member of the financial system but play by your own rules. That creates its own systemic risk. But again, it doesn't seem as necessarily as though banking regulations in their entirety fit the bill, though there was I remember a cybercrime professor of mine once saying, it isn't as though cyberspace gets its own rules. It's that you will see traditional common law crimes existing in cyberspace, and it's up to you to know what's what and how to define it and how to label it accordingly and pick out what are the elements, because it's a new setting, but everything that's happened in the physical world is happening online, and so it's a matter of applying what you already know to a new realm. But yeah, therein lies the challenge then.
I mean, honestly, what we are doing is that we are providing people the opportunity to invest and get equity in return. I mean, the fundamental, whether it's online or not, is exactly the same. We are just leveraging technology in order to make it more accessible. That's really the central point that is key.
So it's a different platform.
Yeah, I mean that's the aim, right? I mean it's about technology enable us to democratize things and to make it accessible to people, to share the knowledge, to share more information, to make it accessible on your pockets. That's incredible, right? Instead of, for an entrepreneur to have to set up like 200 meetings in order to pitch their idea to 200 people that first of all they need to find.
And that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, exactly. And to be able to go to a platform and to access a lot of people that have interest into investing into tech companies, I mean, this is quite incredible, right? But at the end of the day, the product they offer is the same.
So, Karena's already been on our show, and this is your first time here. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, what drew you to the technical path? I mean, your professional background could qualify you as a techie, some would say. And
yeah, I'm an engineer.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yes. She's the engineer,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I'm an engineer. I have an engineering degree from France and Canada, and then after I did a master in finance. So I think I would definitely qualify as FinTech, finance and technology already from the start. I think
and engineers are no nonsense. They look at problems and they try to devise solutions.
exactly. I mean, that's what I love about engineering and I mean technology. And when I discovered computer science, I was like, oh my God, this is just so amazing. You have a problem and you're finding a solution, and it can be 100% right. It's not like marketing where you never know, right? I mean, for me, it's so much more complicating. But like engineering, computer science, right or wrong, logical, it's definitely more my thing.
I certainly found also that engineers in law school, and of course they had the market locked on patent law, because they
I wanted to become a lawyer first, and I went into engineering. So
Me actually too, a tax lawyer, here you go.
but they were some of the most. I mean, that if you were an engineer, yeah, they would let you into the best law schools because they know that unlike college where you could skip the readings, just take good notes and get by, law school requires you to do your reading in increments each night. And they knew that if you were an engineer, because you were used to doing your problem sets each night, that, we can count on you for that diligence consistently. But I also found engineers were some of the most aggressive and competitive people I'd ever met in law school. But by the same time, I hear engineers that disagree with that. They say, no, a good engineer knows it's a team effort. If they don't work as a team,
it's definitely a team effort. I think there is no doubt about this. I mean, I started my career actually trading exotic products, equity derivatives at JP Morgan for quite some years. And then I switched totally to start WHub, actually with Karena. But truly speaking, at the end of the day, we wouldn't have made it possible to build WHub if we had exactly the same background. So what is important, it's about the complementarity of each other. And that's really what is key, because you take two engineers like me, I'm not sure like the result will be like really great. We would be missing a lot of things, but the complementarity is what is making it possible. So it's great that people find their own thing that they are interested in, whether it's business, whether it's economics, whether it's engineering, whether it's law, and actually it's really bringing these people together that makes the magic happen and that develop really great businesses. And I think that's really what's key. So I think it's about everyone to find what they want to do, and based on this they can definitely contribute. I'm a poor designer, it's definitely not my thing. So in order to make it happen, I really need somebody with the creative side as well. So it's really, when you build the team, that it's actually great.
People don't appreciate it. There is a role for the artist
Exactly.
in manufacturing.
For everyone, actually, and that's why it works so well together. It's because actually, in a way, we are very different. We complete each other, we trust as well each other, and we take part of different aspect of the business. And that's key.
I think you talked about competitiveness. I wouldn't call it competitiveness, but I think the thing that we do have in common is a big drive and really wanting to make things happen and possible. So I think that is
definitely
the part.
we
I
are
wouldn't call it competitive, but
overachiever. Not
very
taking
determined.
no for an answer.
Very determined.
Because
Yes.
the flip side is then you've got the general population who many people may have the dream but not the drive.
Yeah, I hope that everybody has a dream for sure. But I think it's a good question. Does the dream come first that drives you, or the drive that makes the dream possible? Yeah.
Yeah, and even in that, I can't underestimate the importance of hard work. It does seem to me that talent matters, but it fails when talented people don't apply themselves.
Yeah, and this thing also, it's definitely, you were talking about hard work, and it is a lot of hard work, but it might sound cheesy, but it's true that when you love what you do, when you're proud of what you do, and when you're passionate about it, it helps to get the number of hours, piled up as well.
Well, that's
passion is a blessing.
Ask our family.
You can be really, yes, obsessed about it, yes.
But that is a blessing, because I would submit to you the vast majority of people in this town are stuck in roles that maybe they don't necessarily hate, but they can tolerate. But they and their dependents have gotten used to living a certain way. They can't rock the boat. I remember something Chris Rock, the comedian, said that there's a difference between having a job and having a career, and that when you've got a job, 5 or 6 o'clock can't roll around quickly enough, and you're counting the minutes of the hours. When you've got a career, as with my late mother, who was a typical overachiever, there needed to be 30 hours in the day for her to do everything, or more.
Yep. That's the only thing we haven't cracked yet, right?
Yeah,
Even technology hasn't cracked that, I know. Like the person who gives us 1 hour more per day.
But I think, actually, to come back to that, I think it's also why we built a hub and we built a community. It's actually about these 30-hour things, right? We know that we cannot do everything ourselves. So by leveraging the community, by leveraging the people we know in order to achieve our goal, is something that has been key. I mean, for AngelHub, for example, we have an investment committee that is comprised of like 40 experts, like CEO of banks or ex-regulators or successful tech entrepreneurs. And really they help us in the vetting, for example, of the tech companies, by giving us their feedback and their view on the market, and each of them brings something different. And it's really by leveraging the ecosystem that also we manage to assess so many companies, for example. So I think, these 30 hours can also be solved by really not doing things by yourself, because that's not going to happen, by leveraging, the people around you, trusted people around you, building an amazing team as well. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for leveraging relationships. I remember once when I was at Thomson Reuters, I was getting a call from one of the salespeople on the business side. I was a journalist, but I had subject matter expertise in certain areas of financial law, and they were asking me for a question. I'm like, this sounds awfully like legal research, legal advice. But anyway, I called one of my contacts, and he provided me with the information I sought, and I passed it on to my colleague. All was well, because his client needed to know. My lawyer contact in Singapore said to me, Ajay, if someone had come to me with this, I would have given it to one of my associates, billed it at the senior partner rate, and again, it was. I was able to pull that off in short notice because I was able to leverage that relationship with someone in my sphere. So yeah, going back to your point, yeah, you can't answer all the questions. You can't always do it.
And that's why you should come to FinTech Week, even if we are all very busy, because actually that's where you can build the meaningful connections in order to speed up your business. That's where you can learn about the technologies that can help you to be faster, to be more efficient. So sometimes it's always good, to pause, to reflect, and to go outside and to learn new things, because this can actually help you and enhance your productivity, creativity, and everything.
Is it too late to get in the game? Is it too late to learn about this topic? Because people think that it's no longer malleable, that it's, yes, the technology is in a state of flux, but it's its own field, it's esoteric, it's arcane, it's for the tech savvy, and my lack of comprehension is going to bar me from entering that space. And
First of all, it's never too late. I would say they are only bad professor if it's too late. I think that when people really understand a topic, they manage.
and bad education can be worse than no education.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, when somebody really understands something, they can explain it to you in a very simple way that you can understand. I mean, and sometimes you don't need to understand everything about the technology. You just need to understand what you can do with it.
The functionality.
You know,
yeah.
exactly. You don't need to understand what is exactly AI and how it works behind, but it's more like, how can it help you? It's actually a superpower for some of the tasks. Where can we use it? You know, it's like Web3 and blockchain. You don't need to understand everything about the infrastructure, but it's more about the use case. And that's really what we want to showcase.
I think there are two elements to it as well. It's really about, you know, technology and the speed and how quickly technology changes, and even foundational new technologies are coming, right? Is just accelerating. So no, I mean, we just saw, you know, in the example of how you pay, right, from fiat to credit cards to digital payments, now to, you know, cryptocurrency payments. So all of that is in terms of matter of time is increasing very, very fast. So it's never too late for sure. The other thing is, I think we talked about it last time, and as Karen said, you know, you don't not only need the techies in the business to make a business work. So I think it's definitely never too late.
The techies don't always necessarily make it easy, because I mean, I've seen this with some of the people I met from Silicon Valley, and sadly, some of the stereotypes and rumors are true. That they're in their own little clique, their own little nest, and there is a tendency to think that they're doing God's work, moving, you know, the world forward, and no one else matters.
I think this is true for like every type of domain.
I see the finance too.
I mean, I think it's really true for everything. But
that's why that show Silicon Valley rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because some would say, okay, it's humor, but many a truth is said in jest, and some people felt it was too close to the truth in terms of the characters they were doing of Peter Thiel and Elon and others.
But you know, I think that's why we're not organizing a tech conference. It's a fintech conference. You know, it's about the financial industry and then the tech as well. And it's really combining everything, because it's only when you combine everything that really magic happens. You know, the tech alone, if you don't know what to do with it, you know, doesn't really matter, right? It's really to understand it and how it can superpower a business. But so it's really the combination of both. So that's why we're talking about edutech, fintech, and everything that is tech power. But it's never really the tech alone. Yeah, I would say that makes it.
InsurTech, wealth. Yeah, I mean, the whole plethora of subfields that have come up. But I want to come back to your respective backgrounds, though. I mean, and that. Yes, you've got different backgrounds, and as you said, there's a complementarity to that. I mean, I remember even Kroll, the private investigative firm, for a long time, their policy was to hire people of different backgrounds, so, but who did similar things, in that if you look at what a law enforcement person does, or what a journalist does, or what an intelligence person does, they all do investigations in their own way. So it was people who are working to a common or similar goal, but with slightly different backgrounds. It was said that there's strength in that diversity, that synergies can be drawn. But I wonder if there might not be conflict as well. And because there are firms that say, we want all our people cut from a certain cloth. There are law firms that pride themselves, I know of in the U.S., the firm depicted in the TV show Suits is not that much of an exaggeration, where they'll say, no, we only hire from Harvard. We only hire from Harvard and Yale. We only hire from the top
But
14.
what made them better was hiring somebody that was actually not from Harvard, and that's make it like super special. But I mean,
the kid was a prodigy.
exactly right. But I think that I don't really know about lawyers, but for us we have really a lot of different nationalities, different culture. As well, and different background. But I think, as you said, what we have in common is that we love tech and everything related to tech. That's what really, I think, ground like our team really together.
That is really bringing the world together. Even people who love tech in the developing world.
But in a different way, we have people that are more related to the investment part, people more related to the conference part. We have people related to digital assets as well. So I mean, it's really different. But at the end of the day, we also speak in a way the same language, right?
Yeah, but because that's actually the point, with diversity. Yes, of course we say diversity makes us richer, and definitely also in the decision making, right? If you want to serve a very diverse community or clientele, I mean, it's better that you have these different viewpoints inside the company. But as human beings, typically, we tend to gravitate towards people who are like you. Right, because of course it's easier. To your point, it's more efficient. It's more efficient if somebody just says yes, yes. You can go faster, right? If we agree, but we maybe go very fast in the wrong direction. So that's where you have to strike the balance. And I think all these, trainings that talk about we have to celebrate diversity, it doesn't come natural, right? I mean, if you say something, someone says, no, I don't agree. You're like, gosh, why you don't agree, right? So it's difficult. And that's, funnily, also one of the reasons why typically you should not start a business with your best friend, because you're probably too similar.
I've been there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we obviously, as we generally do not necessarily accept, the common opinion, and we said, nevertheless, we do start our business together. And yes, I mean...
We got more done when we were away from each other, because together it turned into more of a social thing, and that wasn't as constructive.
Yeah, or because you actually do not want to disagree, or you do want to. And I think that's the beauty. So that's probably a reason why very often it fails to do a business with friends or family, because you would shy away from conflict. But if you're over that, and if you treasure the different viewpoint, then actually the trust or the common passion, right? I would say trust and common passion together makes it a winning formula, because then you have that different viewpoint, but you sort it out and you move on together.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, if people are willing to hear the other side and keep their egos in check, then yeah. I know that, I mean, personally, I think it's extremely myopic to have recruits only from one institution or one tier of institutions. And, people have said for years that it's not beneficial to society. For example, the U.S. Supreme Court, 9 people deciding things for 300 million people. That in itself is a problem. Then you look at the composition of the court, and they're virtually all, by this point, all graduates of Harvard or Yale. No, in an earlier generation, there might have been some schools who maybe were still in the top 14, justices who graduated from schools in the top 14, but maybe further down. That's not the case anymore. That you're unlikely to see someone like someone rise to the presidency from a no-name institution either. So, are you seeing that kind of stratification in the world of tech, that they're only hiring people from big-name institutions?
I cannot tell you the educational background of people in my team. I'm not sure it's really something that I check that much, to be totally honest. Of course, in a way, it does matter. You want people for some role that actually, studied, or, I mean, it depends. There are always exceptions. I think French people do check it quite a lot. Here, I would say maybe a little bit less, but
especially if you're into banking or government service, then.
Yeah,
there are designated paths, certain schools you must go
Yeah,
to.
but I mean, of course, but I think at the end of the day, as we were saying, we are all trying also to go against our own bias and to make an effort, but definitely if you see somebody maybe coming from Harvard and somebody who didn't study, for a very technical role, or I don't know, as low, I mean, yeah, it might be complicated, but I think we give people a chance as well.
But it's interesting because underlying you have the assumption that, for example, everybody coming out of HKU is the same person. And I wouldn't even challenge that to start with, actually.
No one should presume that. But you are going to see a wide class difference. I think you had different stratas of Hong Kong society here in earlier years. To some extent, that's still the case, but I think less so because as time has gone on, it's been a prosperous society. The wealthy, the ruling class in this town, largely send their kids overseas to study. At least, and in my lived experience, I'd say there's strong anecdotal evidence to support that position.
But the funny thing is that people send their kids overseas, but I know a lot of people from Europe that are sending their kids to Hong Kong as well to study. So I think it's really a mixed everywhere, right? So it's great, actually. It brings more diversity.
We're getting a different perspective, right? I mean, that it can open up the eyes of kids here who've never been overseas, and may prompt them to pursue further graduate study overseas. I remember sitting in on a course at MIT once. Harvard and MIT, both separated by the Charles River in Cambridge, and the professor said to his students, I know many of you think you're going to go out there and change the world and do remarkable things, but more than likely you're going to end up in a job answering to someone from Harvard or Yale.
Well, it's up to them, right? I mean...
and again, I think argue that's where potentially the world we live in is a little bit more of a playing ground, and that's hopefully what technology can contribute to as well.
Yeah, because it's more about the talent, more about the vision.
And not everybody want to become entrepreneurs and work like 30 hours a day. Some people, they're happy to do a 9 to 5, and they're happy to focus on other things. And I think it's also great, right? Because what a nightmare if everybody wanted to start their company and had endless ambition. So it's there is no right or wrong. It's all about what do you want to do? Where do you see you fit? And for example, for us, it's just it's a lot of work, but we really love it, and we're looking forward actually to seeing the conference and making it live. And it's like all these hours that we and the team have put in. It's for us, it's just incredible.
Which is a great opportunity to put a shameless plug. So there are dedicated student passes available. So we do hope that the youth actually comes, and because again, it's a nice mixture, because you would obviously see the tech companies, the very successful one, the up and running scale-ups, but you also see the very traditional incumbents, right? So it's going to be a big crowd, and I think for you as a young person, I always say it's interesting. It's maybe much more difficult to find your own path, because they do not seem to have only 2, 3, or 4 typical paths. Like when I studied the last century, there seem to be only a few paths that you either win and are successful, or you're unsuccessful. This time you have much more
traditionally designated paths that society assumed you would take.
Exactly, and now you have more choice. Exactly, well, right? And that's the thing. And now you have more choice, which seems a bit more complicated, but you can change.
You can reinvent yourself. I mean, come on, I was working in finance and investment banking, and now I'm a tech entrepreneur, and so it's okay. You can start with something and change afterwards also. You don't need to decide right away.
No, it's a very inspirational story, but certainly you had skills that are in demand. I mean...
No, actually, truly speaking, I didn't, because, when I left JP Morgan in order to start our entrepreneurship journey, I was coming from an investment bank, and especially doing trading, like equity derivatives, exotics. How can these skills...
You don't think your engineering background helped you?
But the thing is that how these skills can be applied in entrepreneurship, right? So I studied computer science, but before, so the language you study kind of are old already. So actually I went back and I took a 3 months full stack web developer course, in order to get me back to the level, get me back into the game, and being able to code the website myself. So what I mean is that, after it's up to you, it's never too late to learn also the new skills. So I had good foundation.
That's true. Yeah,
I had, good foundation, but if I only relied on this foundation, it wouldn't have been enough. It's about reinventing yourself and continue to learn, and at this time, blockchain was not even a topic, right? So then after, I went and I learned more about blockchain. What is it? What is AI as well, is what I learned 20 years ago. Definitely doesn't apply there.
So technology is a vehicle to facilitate financial inclusion. Is that because nowadays the means of accessing the net, either through your phone, as many people in the developing world do, or through your computer, that because financial services are available online, that democratizes banking and finance, or is there more to it? I mean, what more needs to be done for inclusion? Because even online, a bank can shut your account, and that has been the grievance of the IMF and other global bodies, that the great unbanked, and that how can fintech, how can telecom be used to provide them with banking services? Because as someone said at an ACAMS event in Dubai some years ago, the phone companies are the de facto bank system in parts of Africa, and that many bankers have gotten fat, lazy, and complacent. That people need banking services, they don't necessarily need banks.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic. We talked about that actually in our FinTech white paper that we had issued, a huge topic. And I think there's so much to unpack. I think just headline-wise, I think when we talk about financial inclusion, there's both. There is access, right? Access to devices, access to technology, but there's the know-how piece as well, right? The understanding. I think to your point, when we talk about Africa, we talk about China, we'll talk about Asia in general, where you take ratios about the percentage of population being unbanked versus the distribution of smartphones or mobile phones, right? And saying this is a huge opportunity, because to your point, if you do not need a bank or an ATM or a physical location, but you can have your bank in your hand and you're able to distribute that. And again, the percentage of mobile penetration, the smartphone mobile version, people being unbanked, is such a great opportunity. Yes, but again, there's so much more to it. There's also education to it. There is also the fact that with technology, there are very new business models, right, that arrive, and helping people to become, part of the economic system. And talking about blockchain and gaming and play to earn what wasn't something that existed even 2 years ago. So there's so many different layers to it, and it's very interesting. And then again, one of the reasons why we'll have that at Hong Kong FinTech Week is to unpack that and to say what has use cases, indeed, that blockchain technology allows other industry to really progress. I don't want to use the word disrupt, but I think also why we will be talking about entertaining, gaming, art. So we have different partnerships with very prominent Web3 players, but also very prominent art players, is to really stimulate the creativity of financial services practitioners to say, look, if this is what blockchain technology or AI does to the entertainment, to the gaming, to the art industry, what does that mean for us?
The gamification angle is huge, because that seems to be a lot of what young people, I'd say the 18 to 35 bracket, are talking about. In the time we've got left, I mean, because I know oftentimes, we do appreciate the student passes you set aside, because oftentimes you don't normally see that many students at HK FinTech events, that they're either in school, or to the extent you do see students, it's at the college or graduate school level who are able to attend. This being HKU, what advice would you leave young people, either in terms of wanting to enter the world of tech as an entrepreneur or as a techie, or whatever skills they may bring of value, and also in terms of not being afraid of tech and implementing it into their daily lives to make themselves more productive and what have you? I think the market penetration of phones and smart devices is pretty pronounced in this town. You may be preaching to the choir, but there are always holdouts. So what advice would you give young people about tech and how it's going to change their lives, and maybe they may want to seek a career in this space?
I think the first really advice is be curious. go and ask questions and go to events, go to conferences, and you have so many resources online. First of all, this is incredible, but when you also have offline resources and when you have the opportunity to have such a big scale conference, at your fingertip, be curious and you will learn new things, and that's where you'll get all the new ideas. And it's also good to know what you don't want to do. So that's also a good thing, and you might find something really that you might want to pursue as well, and that you'll develop a passion out of it. So be curious. It's really the first advice.
In fact, I know someone who just left a six-figure job this week precisely to follow her passion, and she had her doubts, but she hasn't looked back. And I don't think the artistic temperament necessarily fit with the law firm culture in that instance, but I wish her well, and yeah, she's curious. She's embarked upon.
And sometimes, if I may say, it's not because you're following your passion that you're not going to make a living out of it as well. So
it's an uncertain road, and I wish her well. I know, and maybe this is an Asian thing. Most people would tend to choose stability and predictability, and that's
and we need both type of people, right? So
but we should not forget that change is constant, the only constant. So I would say just do it. I mean, totally do it, because by doing you learn, and I fully agree.
Well, she's proven herself adaptable, but it's one thing to do it in your early 30s. It's another thing to reinvent yourself, like say
like my age, way older.
Or Robert think of one of the best books I would recommend on reinventing yourself later on in life is Robert Mondavi's book, Harvest of Joys, where he was kicked out of the family wine business at 57 and had to reinvent himself. And he did, but it was a tough slog.
Never too late. Yeah, never too late.
But just do it is definitely also a good advice. Sometimes you have to jump.
Sure. Well, Karen, Karena, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
To our viewers, until next time.